Breaking news. Ukraine's Novator undercuts Western armor prices. It is Sunday, February 1st, 2026, and the global defense market just got a massive wake-up call. To all our listeners who support Ukraine, subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover a revelation that might just change how we think about the economics of war. Ukrainian Armor, that's the company, has officially dropped the sticker price on their flagship vehicle, the Novator. And let me tell you, the numbers are going to make some Western defense contractors sweat.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really fascinating shift. And we aren't just talking about a minor discount here. We are talking about a domestic vehicle that costs like nearly half the price of its main foreign competitors.
Which is just wild when you think about it. We're going to dig into that whole sticker shock comparison. Specifically, how this Ukrainian beast stacks up against the Canadian-made or Scholl Senator. But that's not all. We're also going to reveal the Ford F-550 secret. You know, how a civilian truck chassis is literally powering the front line.
And we have to talk about the drone dome. This is a huge deal. We're seeing a major shift where electronic warfare isn't just an add-on anymore. It's being built directly into the production line to stop those FPV attacks.
Plus, and you won't believe this, we've got a scoop on the Spanish connection. You go, Ukrainian designs are now being built in Spain for the global market.
It's a complete reversal of the usual flow of technology, isn't it? I mean, instead of importing security, Ukraine is starting to export it.
Exactly. So our mission today is to explore how Ukraine has shifted from, a desperate importer relying on emergency handouts to building a self-sufficient, cost-effective defense industry that is actually outperforming the state's own wallet.
It's the economics of survival, pure and simple.
Okay, let's unpack this price war, because cheap usually implies, lower quality, right? If I see a car for half price, I assume the engine is missing or something.
Right, but in this case, the specs tell a very different story.
We have this breaking news from Vladislav Belbas. He's the CEO of Ukrainian Armor. What are the numbers telling us?
The numbers are, they're stark. Belbas revealed that the unit price for the Novator armored vehicle is approximately 13 million Ukrainian hryvnia.
Okay, 13 million hryvnia. What's that in U.S. dollars?
If we convert that, we're looking at roughly $300,000 per vehicle.
300 grand. I mean, in the world of military hardware where a single missile can cost $1 million, that feels like a bargain. How does that compare to what Ukraine has been importing?
Well, let's look at the Scholl Senator. That's the Canadian-made armored personnel carrier that has become, ubiquitous on the front lines.
Right, you see them everywhere.
Over 1,700 of them have been delivered, mostly funded by partners like Germany or Canada. The price tag on one of those, it hovers around 600,000 US dollars.
Whoa. So the domestic Novator is literally half the price.
Pretty much. And even if you look at the broader market, the Novator is consistently running about 20 to 30% cheaper than almost any foreign equivalent with similar protection.
That is a massive difference. So why? Why is the gap so wide?
I mean, is the Senator just overpriced, or is there something else going on?
Yeah, what's the deal?
It's not necessarily that the Senator is overpriced, at least not for a Western market. It's that the logistics of war are expensive, but there is a deeper economic principle at play here. It's not just about the sticker price, it's about the velocity of money.
Velocity of money. Okay, break that down for me. That sounds like an economics lecture.
I'll try not to. But think about it this way. When the Ukrainian government takes $600,000 and buys a Canadian senator, that money leaves the country. It's gone.
Right, it crosses the Atlantic, disappears into the Canadian economy, pays Canadian wages.
Exactly. It's a pure expense. But now, imagine they spend $300,000 on a locally made Novator. A massive chunk of that money comes right back to the state treasury almost immediately.
Through taxes, you mean?
Yes. You have the 20% VAT, you have income tax on the welders and engineers in Kyiv, corporate tax on the manufacturer.
Oh, I see. So the government is essentially paying itself back.
In a way, yeah. Some estimates suggest that up to 40% of the cost returns to the budget. So the real effective cost isn't $300,000. It might be closer to, say, $180,000.
That changes the math completely.
It does. In a war of attrition where money is just as scarce as ammunition, that's huge. It's the difference between buying one vehicle or maybe even three. And that can be the difference between holding a position or losing it.
That makes total sense. It's efficiency as a weapon. But let's get under the hood of this thing. Because saving money is great, but if the car breaks down in an artillery barrage, it doesn't matter how cheap it was. You mentioned the Ford Secret earlier.
Yes. So the Novator, it looks like a tank had a baby with a very angry SUV. But if you strip away all that armor,
Hmm.
you're looking at a Ford F-550.
The F-550, like the heavy-duty commercial truck, the kind utility companies drive.
The very same. And while that sounds underwhelming for a war zone, it's actually a stroke of logistical genius.
I would have assumed you'd want some custom military chassis, not a Ford.
See, that's the thing. Think about the supply chain. If a specialized military transmission breaks on a standard APC, you need to order a part from one specific defense contractor, wait for export approval, ship it. It could take months.
And if the Ford breaks?
You go to a mechanic in Poland or even a civilian garage in Lviv, and you buy the part off the shelf. The spare parts are available globally because Fords are everywhere.
That is incredibly practical. It's prioritizing uptime over having the fanciest custom gear. What about performance? Can a utility truck engine actually cut it?
Surprisingly well. It's a 6.7-liter V8 super diesel. It cranks out 300 horsepower and nearly 1,000 newton meters of torque.
Wow.
It's a beast.
And I read it can hit 140 kilometers per hour. That seems fast.
On roads, yes.
Why do you need to go 90 miles an hour in a war zone?
Because speed is armor. In modern warfare, static targets are dead targets. If you can move troops at that speed, you can punch through a danger zone before the enemy can adjust their fire.
Now, I understand there's been an evolution here. This isn't the original model anymore, right?
All right, we've moved on to the Novator 2. It went into mass production back in 2024. And the biggest change came directly from soldier feedback. The original was a 5-seater.
Okay, good for patrols, maybe.
Exactly. But the troops said, look, we need to move a whole squad. So the Novator 2 is a 10-seater.
That's a big jump. Did they just stretch it out?
They lengthened it by about 10 centimeters, but the real work was in the suspension. They had to reinforce it to handle a gross weight of 11 tons, and they thickened the bulletproof glass.
Let's talk protection. What happens if this thing gets hit?
It has STANAG Level 1 ballistic protection, so it stops 7.62 millimeter rifle rounds, your standard AK fire, but just as importantly, it has mine protection. It can withstand 2 RGD-5 grenades under the wheel or the hull.
That's vital. But you touched on something earlier that I think is the real game changer. The drone dome. We all know FPV drones are the scourge of this war. I see soldiers welding cages on top or like strapping jammers to the roof with bungee cords. It looks desperate.
It is desperate. That's what we call the Mad Max phase of adaptation. But the Novator represents the next phase, industrial integration. Ukrainian armor isn't asking soldiers to figure it out. They're building the solution right into the dashboard.
So this isn't some aftermarket mod.
No, they are integrating Covertus electronic warfare systems right at the factory, specifically the Kraken counter-FPV system.
The Kraken? Cool name. What does it actually do for the crew inside?
It creates an invisible bubble, the dome of radio interference around the truck. We're talking about jamming frequencies between 700 and 10,050 megahertz.
Why that specific range?
Because that's the death band. That covers the vast majority of control signals used by commercial drones modified for combat. When a pilot flies an FPV drone toward a Novator, everything looks fine until they hit that invisible wall.
And then?
Static. The video feed cuts, the control link severs, and the drone just drops out of the sky.
But isn't this stuff crazy expensive? I mean, electronic warfare used to be secret, high-end tech.
It's becoming more accessible. The system costs about 350 to 400,000 hryvnia.
So, what, roughly $10,000?
Give or take. Which sounds like a lot until you compare it to the cost of the vehicle or the lives of the 10 soldiers inside.
That's a good point.
It's arguably the most cost-effective insurance policy in military history. And the key is that it's a factory install. It's powered by the vehicle's main electrical system with proper antenna placement tested by engineers.
That is a massive shift in mindset.
Right.
Treating radio waves as just another layer of armor, like steel.
It effectively is. In 2026, if you don't have spectral armor, you don't have armor. Period.
Okay, so the Novator is the fast, relatively cheap battle taxi with a jammer. But what if you need to punch back? What if you need something heavier than a rifle sticking out the window?
Then you graduate to the big brother, the Varda 2.
The heavy hitter.
Exactly. The Varda 2 is a different beast entirely. It costs about 20 million UAH, so roughly $467,000. For that extra money, you get STANAG Level 3 protection.
Which means?
It can stop 14.5 millimeter armor-piercing rounds, and it can survive a blast of 10 kilograms of explosives under the hull.
So an anti-tank mine.
A powerful one, yes.
And I assume the ride is different, too.
Night and day. The Novator uses solid axles, durable but very bouncy. The Varda 2 has independent suspension.
Why does that matter in a fight?
Crew fatigue. If you are bouncing around a metal box for hours, you arrive at the battle exhausted. Independent suspension keeps the ride smoother, the crew arrives fresh, and it allows for higher speeds off-road. But the real headline feature of the Varda 2 is the SISH module.
SITCH, like the Cossack Fortress. What is it?
It's a 30 millimeter combat turret. This turns the vehicle from a taxi into a proper infantry fighting vehicle. It can engage enemy light armor, suppress positions, all of that.
I assume that kind of firepower isn't cheap.
It's not. The CEO, Belbus, even noted the turret alone costs almost as much as the vehicle itself. But here's the kicker. Even with that expensive turret, the Varda 2 is still about 35% cheaper than Western equivalents with similar firepower.
It just keeps coming back to that efficiency. Which leads us to a major strategic pivot. Defense Express is reporting that the Ministry of Defense has effectively stopped importing foreign armored vehicles.
That's right. The era of panic buying whatever was available abroad seems to be over.
But wait, can the domestic industry actually keep up? It's one thing to have a good prototype. It's another to equip an entire army.
And that is the paradox. Belbus said that Ukrainian armor doubled its production in 2025. They have the capacity. In fact, they can build more vehicles than the state can currently afford to buy.
So the bottleneck isn't the factories anymore, it's the budget.
It's the budget and the bureaucracy. Contracting delays are a huge issue. But there's another bottleneck we need to mention, and it's a scary one. Explosives.
Explosives. I thought we were talking about vehicles.
We are, but remember the ammo hunger of this war. Ukraine has mastered making the metal shells, the casings, for everything from 60 millimeter to 155 millimeter. They can cast the steel all day long, but they still rely heavily on imported gunpowder and explosives to fill those shells.
Why? Why not just build a chemical plant?
It's not about skill, it's about risk. A gunpowder factory is, by definition, highly volatile and physically massive. It's a huge target.
One cruise missile hit and the whole thing goes up.
Exactly. It's just too high risk. So they have to import the bang part of the bullet. It shows that even with this self-sufficiency in vehicles, there are still critical dependencies.
A definite vulnerability. But despite that, the private sector seems to be just outpacing the state-owned companies in innovation.
Absolutely. Companies like Ukrainian Armor are more agile. They have direct lines to the soldiers on the front. If a soldier says the door handle's in the wrong spot, the private company can change it in the next batch. State-owned giants take months to change a bolt.
Speaking of agile, let's talk about the Spanish connection. When I saw this, I had to double-check it. Ukraine is exporting defense tech to NATO countries.
It's a fascinating twist, isn't it? A Ukrainian firm called Praktika signed a deal with the Spanish company Technov. They are going to produce Ukrainian-designed Kozak and Jura armored vehicles right there in Herencia, Spain.
So Spanish workers building Ukrainian designs. Why? Is it just about expanding the market?
It's partly that, but it's also an insurance policy. It's a safe harbor strategy.
Safe harbor.
Think about it. Building a factory in Ukraine is a nightmare. Air raid sirens, power outages, the risk of a missile strike. It's hard to guarantee delivery dates to international clients under those conditions.
Right, hard to meet export deadlines if your factory's on fire.
Exactly. By moving production to Spain, they get the NATO umbrella. They can guarantee delivery schedules to clients in Africa or the Middle East because the production line is physically safe.
That is incredibly smart. It diversifies their risk and their revenue stream.
And it's not just Spain. There's also a massive deal with the Czechoslovak group, CSG. They are partnering to produce 100,000 rounds of 155 millimeter shells in 2025, ramping up to 300,000 in 2026.
That's the ammunition hunger we always talk about. 300,000 shells is a game changer. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on future tech, robots. We hear about aerial drones all the time, but ground robots are coming.
They're here. Ukrainian Armor is showing off the Protector UGV unmanned ground vehicle. Think of a 4,000-kilogram robot tank.
4 tons, that is not a toy.
No. 190 horsepower engine. It can evacuate wounded soldiers without risking a medic's life. It can launch its own aerial drones. And they are pairing it with systems like the Wooly remote turret.
The Woolly.
It's a remote-controlled machine gun turret. It costs $10,000. And the founder of the company said something that really stuck with me. That is the price of a machine gunner's life.
Wow.
For 10 grand, you keep a human out of the line of fire. It just puts everything in perspective.
It really does. So to summarize where we are, February 1st, 2026. Ukraine has weaned itself off foreign armored vehicle imports. They're building the Novator for half the price of Western alternatives, integrating cutting-edge EW on the assembly line, and even exporting their designs to be built in NATO countries.
It's a remarkable transformation. They've gone from a desperate consumer of security to a producer of security. They are building a defense industry that is leaner, faster, and frankly cheaper than what we see in the West.
It really makes you wonder about the broader implications,
Yep.
doesn't it?
It raises a very provocative question for the future. If Ukraine, while under constant missile bombardment, can produce superior, combat-proven armored vehicles at half the price of Western firms, what does that say about the efficiency of the Western military-industrial complex?
That is the elephant in the room.
It is. We pay a premium for Western gear, assuming it's the best. But if a $300,000 Ukrainian truck survives better than a $600,000 export model, as European nations look to rearm, will they keep buying from Washington and Berlin? Or will we start seeing capitals like Madrid and Warsaw buying from Kiev?
A shift that could reshape the global arms market for decades. That is all the time we have for this deep dive. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Sanaria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
And remember, staying informed is the first step in understanding the world we live in.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.